and a lot of those people we talked to, and they really stuck it out, and they did what they need to do, and we really built the team around everybody. So it was really sort of like making sure that people around us were good, were solid, could train, and really liked what they were doing from a critical care perspective and a team-based approach. And knowing that we're training the next generation of providers, that it's always going to be needed. We're going to at some point phase out, and so we need to make sure that we have our generational approach in place, because I think that's one thing that people were sort of short-sighted about. There wasn't how do we replace ourselves? How do we bring up the new crop of people? Because critical care is a grind. I think that, there are only so many people that will stay in this for a long time, because the work-life balance changes in an adult life, and not many people can keep up with it.
Welcome to the Critical Chats podcast.
Or as I'd like to call it, Crit Chat,
where we talk about the new and exciting developments in the critical care world and get to know the providers behind the medicine.
I am Sheila Billica, PA.
And I'm Katie Shakura, PA. We're your hosts, and we're with our producer, Sneha.
I'm also a PA.
3 PAs on a pod.
Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite critical care podcast, Critical Chats. Today, we are diving into a transition that a lot of clinicians think about, but few navigate with as much grace and groundedness as our next guest.
We are sitting down with none other than Adam Katz, who has many roles in the PA world. You might see him from around the hospital, maybe down at a local food market in Holden, Mass.
I call him the Overlord.
He very much is. But here at UMass, he is the Senior Director of Advanced Practice Provider Services in the Critical Care APP team. If you've spent any time in the fast-paced world of critical care medicine, you know it takes a specific type of focus and dedication. But Adam took those skills and stepped into a new arena, moving from full-time clinical practice into healthcare administration.
It's a shift that can easily disconnect people from the front lines, but Adam has managed to stay incredibly humble. It's true. I'm very, very proud of you. You're down to earth and deeply connected to the reality of patient care throughout the entire process. On top of balancing his leadership roles with a strong advocate for the physician associate profession, serving actively on the Massachusetts Academy of Physician Associates, or MAPA, and used to be APP House of Delegate HOD as well, right?
In this episode, we are talking about what it's really like to trade the stethoscope for a seat at the administrative table, how to keep your ego in check when your title changes, and what the future of PA advocacy looks like.
Adam, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, and I'm humbled to be here on the Critical Care Chats. I've listened to a lot of them, and I'm just lucky to be here, and I'm very happy that you guys are doing this, and proud that the team has expanded into the podcast world.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. Yes.
Crit Chats.
What do you think? What do you want to say to Adam?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I think Adam's great. I know. We're very lucky to have him.
I know. I agree. What do you want to talk about first? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I really want to talk about his rise to this entire
let's start.
Administrative world.
Where'd you go to PA school?
So I went to Mass College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences in Manchester, New Hampshire. Before Worcester came online, they had a program up in Manchester. And when I graduated undergrad, I sort of didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And then, of course, after I graduated, I figured out that I wanted to be a PA. And so I had to go back and take all of my classes and do my patient care experience and shadowing and all that good stuff. And I got into school. I applied to, I think, around 30 programs because
Hold on, wait. Where did you go to college?
Springfield College.
Okay.
Springfield, Mass.
And then what did you major in?
Health studies and psychology. I wanted to be a health teacher.
Really?
I can see that, for sure.
I can see that, yeah.
I can see the sweatband.
Yeah. But I could
the bananas.
So the interesting thing was that there was 3 parts to the Massachusetts State Teachers Test, and I could pass the reading and the subject portion, but I, for the life of me, could not pass the writing portion. So I took it about 3 times. And I said, okay, what am I going to do here? Because I can't just keep taking this test. And so my junior year, I got a bachelor's in health studies, and then I did entire psych bachelor's in my senior year. And then after I finished that, then I figured out what I wanted to do while I was bartending and lifeguarding and coaching rugby after I graduated college.
You did? You coached rugby?
Yeah.
I love that sport.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
I feel like all of that stuff sort of applies to where you're at now. You know, It's a lot of interpersonal skills and I guess psychology.
Yeah, there's a lot of prior experiences until going into the medical field where it definitely helped out because I was able to develop a lot more communication skills, do a lot more sort of work-related jobs where you're kind of dealing with all different types of things from construction to the restaurant business to the fast-paced environment, you know, behind the bar, and then dealing with a lot of different types of people, coaching at the collegiate level. And I did play in football in college for a couple of years before I changed to move to rugby and then played there. So there was a lot of team building that occurred sort of innately with all of those experiences. So it helped. You know, big groups of people, and you have to learn to lead by example. And there were a lot of lessons learned before I even came into the healthcare administrative field.
So once you decided you wanted to be a PA, what did you do to get those hours?
Yeah, so what I initially did was I wound up shadowing some random PAs that I found in Bay State. I was able to do that and then kind of fell in love with it. And then I wound up applying for a job as a medical assistant in a gastroenterology clinic down in New York, where I'm from, because that's where I went right after I graduated. And I worked there for about a year and a half to get all my patient care hours. And then I went and had to take all my prerequisites because I didn't do pretty much anything in undergrad. And then once I completed those, I applied to school. So there was a gap, around 30 schools. Wow. And I interviewed at one. I got waitlisted down at Stony Brook because that was like the closest place to where my parents were living. And it would have been cheap. It was nice. It was in-state tuition. They were a bachelor's program at the time. I got waitlisted, and then I interviewed at Mass College of Pharmacy. Like 3 weeks later, I got in. I accepted, was sitting in class, and I got a call from Stony Brook. Hey, a position opened up. Do you want it? And I said, oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm actually in school now, so you can open up my seat. And all the other schools, like, you know, I just didn't even go to the interview. So it happened pretty quickly. I was more or less desperate to get into PA school because that's what I wanted to do. So.
Well, you're a great PA.
Thank you.
And did you always want to do critical care? Like, when did that come to fruition?
Good question. So, since I was in sports my entire life, I was pretty much like set. I'm going to go into sports med, probably orthopedics. And then I went on my first clinical rotation, and that was in surgery down at Brockton Good Sam in Brockton. And I was in my first orthopedics case. I was like, this is terrible. I don't want to do this. And we had a couple patients from the general surgery department that wound up in the ICU. And I was like, wow, this is impressive. This is very overwhelming. And from then on, I kind of always stuck with me, and I did all my other rotations. And at the end, there was an elective, and I had actually got to do an elective rotation at UMass. Steve Cahill was my preceptor at the time. In 2008. And I was just hooked. Everything was over my head. It was fast paced. It was interesting. I just sort of, like, you peel back the onion just a little bit after 5 weeks of being on rotation. I was like, I want to do this. And they had a spot opening for the postgraduate residency at the time for PAs. And I sort of said, I want that. And basically at the time, you know, they were saying, like, you know, whoever interested and has a pulse is in. So I sort of got in without an interview and
hit the ground running. Get to
graduated
work.
in December, had a job in February, and was like moving down and started immediately. So that's sort of how it went.
So critical care is about rapid fire, high stakes decisions where you see the impact immediately, just like the bar. You bartended, right? That's true. Admin is often the opposite, long-term, bureaucratic, strategic. How they're supposed to adjust from one to the other? Yeah,
I think to this day, it's still an adjustment. I have to catch myself because I am not a patient person at heart. So even though I I may sort of show that on the outside, but you do have the instant gratification in critical care, and I think that's a really nice part about that. But you're right. Coming into the administrative field and world, you're really looking to change big projects, big programs, and that takes a lot of time and effort, and things could be derailed very easily and quickly. And so it just takes a lot of time and patience. And, after you've done it many times in those projects and realize what it takes to get it, it's a little bit easier. And then you sort of set your expectations appropriately. So it's been better over time, but I do catch myself kind of getting frustrated, when things don't go as quick as they should or I'd want them to. But
that's true. Yeah. I love the instant gratification, getting labs, knowing all the imaging right away. It's just so nice. Mm-hmm. In critical care, I mean, was there a moment that you were like, I could do more for this hospital? And is that sort of how you came about your larger role? Or were you sort of like it fell into your lap, someone approached you and they're like, hey, you're charismatic. You seem like a nice guy.
So, because Sheila wants to dive into this piece. So it started, and I really had no interest in going to the administrative side. I really didn't want to deal with it because, I realized how much of a headache it could possibly be. And I really went in this to be a good provider and learn as much as I can and take care of patients. And that's, what I still, the biggest reason why I went in, because I could figure I could do a little bit more from where I was sitting. But it really started when I finished the postgraduate fellowship and I started to work clinically for a couple of years, and I started to become pretty good at that. And at the time, there was a medical director and there was a non-clinical administrator, and there was no clinical manager for the team because they kept going through clinical managers. And I think I had said maybe around 5 of them in 7 years. And so it was very difficult for those folks. And they were missing somebody sort of boots on the ground, like having a new hire, trying to help to orient them and give feedback. And so I really started out helping out that way. And it kind of grew from there. I helped to build the orientation program, keep people on track of what we have today. And so I started to do that. And it kind of just grew from that piece. For a couple of years, I did that and having a little bit more responsibility over time. And then the non-clinical administrator had resigned from the job, and they had said, everybody's been kind of saying that you would be a good person to do this. And I was like, I'm not interested. They was like, why? I was like, well, I like this job. I like what I do. And, people who go into this role don't last very long. Like, it's not, it's not a surprise. It's not a secret. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, we have a couple of people who are interested, so we're going to interview them. And nobody took the job. And then quickly they came back and saying, so we have no other options. There's a lot of people that think you would do good at this, and it would be a good opportunity for you. And I sort of stewed on it for a little bit. I chatted with a couple of the senior APPs who are here, and the big thing was you can make a big difference. Yes, there is a potential that, you may find yourself out of this place also, but the opportunity may come along once and it may never come ever again. And you can always go back to the bedside and be clinical.
That's a great point.
And that sort of hit home, and it was a mess from when I started. I had no prior training experience about how to do anything administratively here. It was sort of a black box. There wasn't someone to take my hand and show me what was going on or mentor me. It sort of had to get figured out. So I accepted the job, and I never worked so hard in my entire life trying to figure it out, because I knew that the team needed support clinically, because we didn't have as many people as we do today. It sort of fell apart a little bit after the financial crisis of 2008. They cut a lot of positions at the hospital, and a lot of people were sort of freaked out to stay in the organization, financially reasons, it wasn't so secure. And then we started to build from there. And so in 2014, I took over the end of the year, started officially in 2015. And it took many, many years to sort of put the things in place that we needed to sustain the program and get it back to where it needed to be.
We are forever indebted to you.
True.
As advanced practice providers, I feel like there's so much behind the scenes that happens just to keep our jobs where they're at, keep us competitive with other hospitals, with other PA salaries. with what we can do, our scope of practice. So we're just so grateful for everything that you've done for us.
Yeah, I'm amazed that you're able to still stay, like be grounded and be a nice person, a person I would look forward to talking to, rather than, oh, it's Adam, that's hard, things like that.
Yeah, don't let the coat or the jacket fool you.
And so honestly, I was here to do all those things, but everybody around me, the entire team, everybody did their part. Everybody worked hard. Everybody picked it up. Everybody trained other people. There are people that were just like, I don't know if I could stay here, and a lot of those people we talked to and they really stuck it out and they did what they need to do. And we really built the team around everybody. So it was really sort of like making sure that people around us were good, were solid, could train, and really liked what they were doing from a critical care perspective and a team-based approach. And, knowing that we're training the next generation of providers, that it's always going to be needed. We're going to at some point phase out. And so we need to make sure that we have our generational approach in place, because I think that's one thing that people were sort of short-sighted about. There wasn't how do we replace ourselves? How do we bring up the new crop of people? Because critical care is a grind. I think that, there are only so many people that will stay in this for a long time because the work-life balance changes in an adult life and not many people can keep up with it. And so people move on for many reasons. It's not usually because they hate the medicine or they hate their colleagues or the patient population. It's more or less because it's hard to balance everything out,
Yeah, the schedule.
Yeah, the schedule. But truly, we have the best coworkers. Everybody's so different and so fun and just brilliant. So I feel very fortunate to have some of my colleagues, as friends.
I agree. So for other critical care Ps listening who are eyeing leadership roles, not me. What is one clinical skill that translates perfectly to admin, and what is one clinical habit you had to actively unlearn? Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I put a lot of the skills I learned in critical care to what I do on a daily basis administratively. I think that, we tend to wind up having a lot of information flooding us at one time. And a lot of stress as well, and having to be able to compartmentalize it over a period of time. You're able to sort of once you remove some of the stress and all the other extraneous stuff, you can focus in on the problem, hone in on it, and then kind of see what the root cause is. And then with some of the other information that comes around, you can see what's happening from the trees from the forest. And I think that the good thing from a critical care perspective is that when I'm in the administrative side, it's not life or death. It's a little bit different. So you can see things coming quicker than others may. The sort of little signs that we see from, maybe there's an attrition in this area or there's grumblings in this area and there's different market analyses here and things that help us to sort of hone in on there may be an issue. So I do feel like I've used all those investigative skills within critical care and then, knowing what the differentials could be, and what the other information that would help to support that. There's a lot of noise everywhere and things that, are there, but that doesn't really make a lot of difference. So critical care definitely helps to peel back the BS and what's important.
See the big picture.
Yeah, pretty quick. And I think that's something that's helped me very much so in administration. And because I'm clinical, I also see a lot of things differently than other folks that are in administration. And it's sort of we can save this here, but the outcome would be this. And sometimes it's, the savings is not really worth it in the long run. And so that does help me to create a sort of a different angle and a different lens on things. And, we have those conversations that it helps.
Anything you had to unlearn?
Yes. I think we talked about a little bit in the beginning is that instant gratification. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of people tell me, you just need to be patient, on certain things like that, because, there is a lot of bureaucracy, there is a lot of red tape, especially at a big organization like this. There's not one layer of people to go through, there's many. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things may die just because of the committee hell that you have to go through. And so you have to be very persistent, very organized, and, just keep moving forward and keeping your eye on the prize, because it is very easy to let something go just because of all the hoops that you need to jump through. And then the biggest thing is, one thing I just could never forget is that, I got into this to take care of patients, and the providers that we have here are the ones who take care of the patients, along with our nursing colleagues and our physician colleagues and everybody else on the team. And so it's hard for me to forget that. And it's a good thing, because I still do clinical work, and that's a part of the job that I love. And I always want to do it because I love it, but it also keeps me grounded in the same way.
What is it like to now come back and work a regular run-of-the-mill shift in the surgical trauma ICU or the neuro ICU?
I had a weekend with him.
How did he do?
Really well. Like, he's not the boss at all.
Just hanging out with everybody.
Yeah.
Many of them have no idea who I am. They're like, are you new?
Somebody said that. Oh, you new? Somebody thought I was new too. I was laughing so hard.
They pulled us aside.
I nearly passed
Who's
out.
That
yes.
Really provider.
Yes. Is that Adam Katz?
So what is it like in terms of, what it used to be when you were strictly just clinical to now? Like, are there things that you see and you're like, ugh, just very, very different from what it was? I'm sure you have a completely different lens.
So, I mean, like in 2009, when I started, it was very different. We didn't have like a formal EMR system. Things were some on paper, all that stuff.
Or ultrasound and X-ray.
Oh, X-ray was around. Ultrasound was around, but we weren't really using it. I remember doing my first line by feel. It was like a right IJ hemodialysis catheter by feel, and I was like, "Is this normal?" I like it. I mean, I still feel like you fall right back into the groove. Like it's like kind of riding a bicycle. I still keep up on those clinical skills and. Able to be in the sim lab to help teach and all that stuff. So like, I don't really lose a lot of that piece. I just know that one thing that I had to be okay with was that when I went into the administrative role, I knew I wouldn't be as good clinically as I once was. Like that's something that I knew that was going to degrade over time. Because you just can't keep up on everything while you're trying to like hone your craft in the administrative healthcare field while you're doing all this other learning and everything. But, after a while, I realized that I was still good enough to keep working in the ICUs, and I don't miss that. I don't miss that, and it actually helps to bring back some of my empathy when I'm not on the unit as much. So when I come back, I have a lot more patience with people and families, and I'm able to talk. And when some things come up and like it's a big deal, it's like, okay. Let's talk about, let's figure it out. And some people kind of have a short fuse when they're always working clinically. And
that's so true.
For me, it's nice. I just get back and it's like, okay, sounds good. Let's deal with it,
I think straddling both worlds actually make you a better administrator and also a very good clinician. And I know a lot of people are always like, oh, Sheila, with her 100 jobs.
Millions of jobs. She's like, I don't want any leadership roles. And she just is the leadership role.
No, but I'm trying to say that it helps you focus more wherever you are. Because all you have learned from one side, one role to the next, really they coalesce and make you into the brilliant, administrator you are, the incredible, teacher and professor that you are.
I think I have better reasoning too in terms of like why we do the things that we do. And the healthcare has been sort of ever changing, and with every administration and every change in regulation, like we all have to sort of accommodate to that. And so there are things that happen just because, this is part of what, CMS is requiring or a new reg is requiring. And so, when we put things in the change, we try to announce them and talk about them and generate questions. And then, when I'm on the units, it's like something comes up like, why are we doing this? It's like, good question. Let's talk about it, And so I kind of feel it's nice, especially at the bedside, talking to the nurses at night, because that's when I really only work, is nights, weekends, and holidays now. They tend to don't always get like the same amount of education or communication as daytime folks Monday through Friday. And so that's kind of nice to be there to talk about that stuff.
That's so true, actually. And you do hear them kind of like grumble about that a little bit. But
why does that have to happen to 3IC all the time? Only into Lakeside.
So true. So true. So where do you see the future of advanced practice providers at UMass? Do you see like big changes happening in the next, 10 years?
So I think that, there's a looming physician shortage as they talk about. I think they keep changing the dates, but it's like the peak is probably going to be around the mid 2030s. Massachusetts seems to be in a bit of a pickle, also because of cost of living is very high. We really haven't done a good job to sort of make a pathway for young professionals to come in and start a life and not sort of be a little bit destitute with, the house payments and school loans and all that good stuff. So it's a tough spot to be in. I think that we have a lot of opportunity with the APPs who are in the state of Massachusetts to backfill a lot of those needs. In particular, it's going to be primary care, outpatient ambulatory areas. And as the rules and regs change and as the entities sort of accept what's going on, they're going to allow for more autonomy and more independence for the APPs who have experience to go into those roles. And it's already happening. The academic medical centers usually go last because they have the highest cohort of physicians and rules and regs and everything else to sort of change over time. And that's sort of what I do now, in a sense, for a lot of my work. But the smaller community-based hospitals, they've already sort of flexed and changed a lot. And so they already have a lot of that in that environment. Inpatient will typically take much longer to do that, but there are some specific areas where APPs will have a little bit more autonomy to utilize their skills better and stretch the team a little bit more, would do more with less. Because that's sort of like what we're always dealing with. Physicians 100% will always be needed and always have their place. It's just that they're not going to have enough of them, and we kind of we have to figure out how to manage the patients, the workload with the team that we have. And there's a lot of instances where APPs are underutilized. Critical care, we utilize APPs very, very well. But I think that there are other areas where, that utilization will be going through the roof over the next 10 years.
Very cool. Yeah, it's hard to picture like things being different from now, obviously. But I feel like our group is so strong. Like we should be a model for the rest of UMass.
Wow. Well said.
And then as a physician associate, in terms of just general kind of everything, I mean, AAPA, there's MAPA, you've had hats in a lot of those different places. What are sort of the things that you have talked about or, I guess, stood on the board of in terms of policies for PAs?
Yeah, so a lot of the work that I do currently is very UMass-centric. And so a lot of it is taking, what we have from organizational perspective, med center, medical group, and all the affiliates, taking stock of what we have in the communities, what they do, what they can do, what they can't do based off of the rules and regulations, and working with our colleagues in risk management and Office General Counsel, and then all the med staff services groups, and kind of being on there, reviewing the policies, updating the policies, creating different competencies to allow people to, because, at the end of the day, even if the state allows OTP to pass for PAs, their NPs already have independent practice after 2 years of working and whatnot. The entity that they work for still sort of rules the roost. They can be more conservative than the rules, but they can't be more liberal than the rules. And a lot of times it takes sort of an act of Congress to get things changed. But over time, bit by bit, as you change certain things, people become more comfortable because there has not been the sky falling after things have changed.
Yeah.
And people have to get comfortable with that. That's the big piece for me too, because it just takes a long time to get that done in step-by-step process. And so it's slow to move, but it is moving in that direction.
And for our audience, can you just define OTP?
Yeah. So optimal team practice, that's what the PAs have been sort of trying to utilize as a sort of path to independence. In many states, I haven't looked in the last numbers, but last time I looked, it was somewhere around maybe 12 or 15 states have OTP. And it really removes the regulation for there to be a collaborating physician for a PA to practice, as well as prescriptive practice agreement as well after a couple of years of working. And so, that has improved, I think, some the ability for PAs specifically in certain states to meet the demand for the patients that are out there. Start their own practices or start their own contracting companies to work for organizations to fill a need. And so there's a lot of different ways that it can be utilized.
Where do you see the future of PAs and the PA profession?
So I see it sort of staying sort of very similar to what it is now. But if they do enact OTP, that'll sort of spread throughout the United States. Already has. It's just going to take a couple of years to figure that out. And then it would allow for PAs to be utilized much more in sort of all the facets of healthcare. I think the one benefit that the PAs have is that, they really haven't created separate licensures and separate certifications like the NPs have. And so it sort of doesn't close any doors, so to say. So you can go into pediatrics, and then within a year, if you change your mind, you can be in adult medicine or geriatric medicine. You can go and be in the operating room. You don't have to go back for a different certification. And you can really take care of the life spectrum of life. So I think that would be a poor move if that were to happen. But I being in some of the HOD and some of the conversations there, that wasn't the plan by any means. At some point, they may have a discussion about trying to have everybody go for their doctorate, which I think would also be a little bit of a mistake to make that a prerequisite. I think it's a good opportunity for people to have, but they really don't need to have that for clinical practice. So I do think that things will sort of truck along, and you're going to have more PAs that you do now throughout the United States. I think there are areas where they could use more PAs, but it's just going to happen sort of naturally depending on where the physician shortage is and the provider shortage is. And depending on how the government, really improves their incentivization to pay for certain programs and pay for education and help with loan forgiveness, that'll sort of drive where the market goes. But I tend to see it's a pretty strong outlook, at least from all of the labor and statistics boards and everything else we look at. It's very, very strong, and it continues to be.
Do you ever feel that the PA profession would become oversaturated?
No. I do think that there are some places in the United States that will become saturated, but there are so many other areas that will need the help. For instance, we have just a very oversaturated APP market in general in Massachusetts, but it's not hard to find a job as an APP. At some point, we will have the older generation of providers that are retiring, and then they'll be replaced, but also the expansion of APP services to backfill physician shortage will still have to happen. So maybe by 2030s, 2040s, there may be a little bit of an issue, depending on how that goes, but that's a very far time away to kind of look at things. I think within the next 5 years, we're going to be in a good spot filling all of the jobs that need to be filled. Here, our vacancy rates are lower than the national average. And so anytime we have openings, we have good fortune in terms of being able to backfill those positions or fill those positions with people. And it really is I look at that as a national issue, not just a Massachusetts issue. But I think that people are going to have jobs for the foreseeable future, and it won't become oversaturated yet. If they don't cap the number of programs they keep opening up, there may be an issue, because right now, in the state of Mass, every time they open up a program, where are they going to find clinical rotations? Because everybody's fighting for clinical rotations.
So true.
So in Massachusetts, I think we're good from a program perspective. They need to start kind of pushing elsewhere throughout the country.
Excellent.
So you just mentioned at least earlier, way before we talked about the APA and whether PA's jobs are going to be saturated, we talked about you being in the unit with me. And I always wondered, how do you handle the shift in dynamics with your former clinical peers? Was it initially tough balancing being a supportive colleague with being an administrator?
Yes, it was interesting because, when I came in, the people that precepted me, taught me, I looked up to in terms of like providers and knowing kind of all that stuff. Then in a very short period of time, I was the one sitting across from them doing their annual evaluations and talking to them when there were issues that would come up. And, I knew that there was always going to be interesting sort of power dynamic there, but I just tried to sort of make I knew I was going to lose friends with this job potentially, but I always just sort of make sure that this is a very objective thing that we're talking about here. This does not impact things outside of here. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I kind of just made it about work, and I also just tried to help people the best that I can. And usually it worked out pretty well. There are some people that may have not been happy with me being in the role, but there are others that were, relieved and happy about that. So I knew I wasn't going to make everybody happy, but I guess, I don't know. I don't think that was really my entire responsibility to do that. But
I think if you make everyone happy, you're not necessarily the best leader.
Yes, you won't be doing your job properly. Yeah. So,
but I do see that where you're kind of maybe not friends with everybody, but you're friendly with everybody. Yeah. Very, very down to earth, very easy to talk to. Mm-hmm. So if anybody has a problem, I don't think people feel intimidated by you.
No, unless they don't know me yet. Yeah. Because that happens too. Now that I've become a little bit busier on the system side, I don't get involved as much as the hiring and new training side. And so when I see people, I'm like, oh, I remember you from the interview 8 months ago. Nice to finally see you, Mm-hmm. And then we get to talk. But it's always nice if I get to be on a shift with somebody for 12 hours. Mm-hmm. It's good because you really get to kind of chat with people, help people, talk to people, learn about them and whatnot. So
if you could put one piece of advice on a billboard for every new PA entering critical care today, what would it say?
Only get one word?
You get a sentence, a phrase. Yeah, a sentence or a phrase, an advice.
So for new people coming into the critical care field, I would say that they need to really select a place that's going to help them grow, help them learn what the right way to do stuff is. Because a lot of the times people don't really choose sort of a path that they're going to be shown how to do all the right things in this field. Sometimes they get out of school and, with the education that we got, it was, very much primary care based education. And then people went off and did their own thing, kind of tended to get a little bit of skills here and there. And then some of that helped to get into the critical care job that they're in. And they sort of figure it out. And that usually takes a very, very long time to do. But for us, we're pretty fortunate to have a good onboarding program and a fellowship track. And so I would say, spend the time in the first couple of years after practice to help yourself grow, learn clinically, and then all the other things will follow. Many people just come out and go for the highest paying job right away, and usually that has the least amount of support. And it sort of takes away from their future progress. So,
So the piece of advice on the billboard would be
very long.
It'd be very long. It'd be very long.
I'd be I can't quite see. Oh!
It would basically say, learn in a fostering environment.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Learn learn.
And in parentheses, don't go for the highest paying job because you'll regret it.
So speaking of education, did you have a question?
Yeah,
or did Sneha have a question?
I think both Sneha and I have similar interests in education. For somebody who, like me and like Sneha, who's just starting to get into that sort of avenue of education, what do you recommend? What advice do you have for somebody moving into PA education?
Yeah, and the good thing is that there's a lot of opportunity to get your foot in the door at a lot of places because, many programs, again, we happen to be saturated in our sort of like local market with postgraduate PA programs. But really connecting with schools, initially it's really to do preceptorship clinically, to get really involved with the schools, to see if you like that, and then also to start to deliver some lectures for schools as adjuncts, because it takes a lot of time to build those lectures and then deliver them and see how you do talking in front of people, maybe get into a lab environment to see how you like that. I honestly did that right when I got out of PA school and I started working clinically, and I was like, oh, let me see how this goes. And honestly didn't like it. So it's sort of like, it was like, okay, maybe not right now, but maybe in the future. So that was helpful for me to know. So you don't have to buy the whole sort of cow right away. You can dip your toe into it and precept, teach, lecture, see how it goes. Some people love that. Some people don't like that. And then now the way that the programs go, many of them require having your doctorate. And so some people will get their doctorate, specify in education. And so they have that for the future. And then they start to do that a little bit more, maybe become an adjunct professor for a school, get embedded with them. And then, that gives you sort of the foot in to maybe that program or another program. So
Sneha's doctorate is in one thing, and yours is in health sciences. Would they consider could Sneha teach too at the same level as you? Would they accept her?
So most of the time, I think I haven't looked in many years, but this is before the doctorate programs have come out, and it was sort of like, you have to have your master's as a minimum, and now the programs are having more doctorates in the field, and so I'm sure that there is not a sort of like a guardrail, so to say, but in the next 10 years, I'm sure that the doctorate's going to be ubiquitous for everybody in terms of getting into those jobs. Because they're going to want to have more in the field to do that. So I would say this is a good time now because many of them probably don't require doctorates. But if you have one in another discipline, that will bode well because it's really very much of more of the critical thinking skills, learning how to do research, learning how to apply the literature and all that good stuff. So, it's not a true PhD by any means, but, it kind of goes down that pathway. So it would only help. Because it's not directly in the Doctor of Science and PA studies. Would that go against you? I don't know. I don't believe so.
Okay. What is your anthem song or quote? We're wrapping up now. We're very, very, very grateful that you were able to sit and talk to us. But we have these two final questions for you. And the first one is, what is your anthem song or quote?
So my anthem song, like what plays in my head, so to say, or will I listen to?
What do you need to, push you into from a difficult situation into a, set your mind straight again? Yeah.
So I guess from a music perspective, I will sort of like have AC/DC, Thunderstruck. And then from a quote, there are many, but like Arnold Schwarzenegger has a good one that's sort of like of resilience.
I'll be back.
No. But it's more or less strength doesn't come from successes, struggles develop your success. So there's a lot of things that I've sort of messed up on or have done wrong and fixed, and so those are all like very, very good lessons. And also you kind of look to others to like see what they have not done well and learn from that. So when the tough gets going, the going get tough. My tendency is to not back down from things. I sort of get a little bit angry. That makes me persevere, and then I push forward.
Obstinate.
Yeah.
Resilient.
Yeah. That's how I am a little bit.
So top 1 to 3 things you do when you've had a tough day and you're struggling with burnout or, somebody doesn't want to go to bed, what are the top 1, 2, 3 things you do when you've had a tough day?
I have a lovely home wife. I have a beautiful, supporting wife. I have an 8-year-old son. I have 2 dogs. And kind of going home is nice. So I think the days are usually pretty stressful and busy. So honestly, just put the phone away.
Have a nice dinner.
Cook some dinner, hang out, talk.
Learn Italian.
Go for a walk. We have a tendency to eat dinner and then go for a walk with the dogs and the family and kind of just chill out and leave all our electronics behind. It's nice to just decompress a little bit. It's like a daily thing with us. Yeah. Just put the stuff away and kind of just chill out.
So yeah, if you see a bunch of cool cats, hanging out, a couple stray cats in Holden.
That's us.
Well, thank you so much. I know you have such a busy schedule, so we really appreciate you taking the time to come do our podcast with us.
I'm, again, honored, and thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Crit Chat podcast.
It's critical chats, Shayla.
Remember, you can watch the podcast video on YouTube or listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, CastBox, or Amazon Music.
Everywhere.